Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another Star Wars Battlefront II video. It is no secret among longtime players that Battlefront II is a game that can suffer from some questionable in-game communication. What I mean by that is, well, there are a lot of game mechanics and features that Battlefront 2 just doesn't tell you, or tells you in a way that leaves you with more questions than answers, and you're really only going to discover some of these things by pure chance, testing for yourself in arcade, or by seeking out information from an outside source. I am someone who has played Battlefront 2 from the very beginning. I imagine the name of my entire channel gave you some indication of that, and with the hundreds of hours of playtime I've accumulated, I have slowly developed a pretty sizable list of hero features and tips that Battlefront 2 doesn't really tell you and only comes with a lot of experience, but once understood you'll have a much easier time taking advantage of these features while playing. Just to give you a little preview, some of these include Yoda's ability to fly, and no, I'm not joking, discussing 3 widely used star cards that work in a completely different way than most people think, doubling Boba's melee damage, and a mistake that many boss players make that often gets them killed. This video will be focused only on heroes and villains, plus a couple of tips for reinforcements, but I have about 30 more of these I could fit into future videos, so if you like this one and would like to see more of this type of video and see this type of video turn into a series, let me know. Leave a like on this video, and if you like this one, I'll continue with these as I've picked up a lot of tricks to maximize hero efficiency as I have played this game over the past 2 years. Now, before we jump into the hero tips and secrets, I wanted to quickly thank the sponsor for today's video, Manscaped. Now, this is definitely the most out there product I've ever featured on the channel. Believe me, I am well aware of that, but from my point of view at least, Manscaped is dedicated to an honorable cause, that being men's grooming, specifically grooming below the belt. Now, we won't be doing a live demonstration today, but I did want to let you all know about Manscaped's new Perfect Package 2.0, which you can grab today using code NIGHT20, which will get you both a 20% discount as well as free shipping. So what are you waiting for? Your balls will thank you. Alright, thanks once again to Manscaped, and let's get into those hero tips and secrets. First up, I wanted to let you all know about a really useful, and from what I can tell online, almost completely unknown tip with Boba Fett that allows you to deal more damage with his melee than any standard lightsaber attack in Battlefront 2. When using his melee attack normally, he will deal 100 damage to anyone, which is already higher than every other blaster hero. Han, Leia, Lando, Phasma, Finn, Bosk, all of those heroes deal 65 damage with their melee, but Boba Fett deals 100. However, by using this trick, you can deal double that, or 200 damage per melee, which like I said is significantly higher than the damage most lightsabers do. How you do this is by activating Boba Fett's melee when he's on the very outer edge of his melee range. If you are up close or somewhere in the middle of Boba's melee lock-on range, he will just deal 100 damage, and if you're not aware of this, you will be dealing the standard 100 damage 99% of the time. However, if you activate right on the very edge of where Boba will still lock on for a melee, he will activate a second and special melee animation where he will take a slightly larger step forward, and every time you successfully activate this animation, you'll be dealing 200 damage, which is an insane amount for one single attack, and stack that with a rocket barrage at their feet, and you'll be up to over 600 damage dealt in just over a second, which will allow you to take out heroes like Han, Leia, and Finn with just those 2 attacks alone, melting them from full health in under 2 seconds, which is absolutely insane and makes people so mad online. This is something no one ever utilizes, probably because most people don't know about it and just try to melee as close as possible, which makes sense if you don't know about the bonus damage. But once you know how to pull this off successfully, it is easy to do every single game, and while it is a little bit risky against lightsaber heroes, it isn't at all against blaster heroes, as they'll be dead before they know what hit them. Now let's move on with that whole Yoda can fly thing I alluded to earlier, and it is completely true, Yoda is able to fly. You are able to do this at any time by simply chaining his abilities together in mid-air. You'll see me here on Kashyyyk, I use his dash, then unleash, then dash again, then presence, then dash again, and you can even get a little extra distance by swinging your lightsaber at the tail end of this ability chain. This is something that most people don't know about. I did talk about this in a video on the channel like once before a year and a half ago, but it's something I had to include in today's video as it is such a fun trick you can pull off. It's not practical at all because while it does work every single time, it also uses up all of your abilities in the process. Next up, I wanted to let you all know how you can damage enemy heroes through their block every single time. I rarely have this used against me online, yet I do it all the time, so I suppose after this video goes up, I'm gonna have to readjust once it starts getting used against me. Not that nobody knows about this, it's definitely more widely known than the previous 2 things we discussed, but it's still something I rarely see utilized. How you do this is while you are blocking and an enemy is attacking you, you want to swing your lightsaber the second you hear their lightsaber hit yours. The moment you hear your lightsabers clash, keep holding down your block button but hit the attack button at the same time, and you will swing an unblockable attack while not taking any damage yourself. It's difficult to get a really clean clip online of this, but I'll try to come up with a few to show you exactly what I'm talking about. It is very simple, and I will repeat it once more just for clarity. If you are blocking yourself, and an enemy with a lightsaber is attacking you, the moment you hear the lightsaber clash sound effect, swing your lightsaber while still holding onto your block, and your character, whoever it is, will perform an unblockable attack while also preventing you from taking any damage, as your enemy will be busy with the end of their attack animation, but past the point where it would deal any damage to you. I honestly have no idea if this is even an intentional feature. I kind of doubt it, to be honest. I have a feeling it's more like that bug back at launch where attacks in the air would break right through a block. Everyone thought it was some strategic part of the combat system until DICE released a patch that took it out of the game entirely. Switching strictly over to the dark side of things and over to Count Dooku, I wanted to do a little myth busting, or more so some clarification on two of his star cards, and both of these are cards I see used pretty frequently, yet many people don't understand how they work, as their description is written in a way that leaves a lot up to interpretation. The first card in question is Initiative. This card was added to Battlefront 2 a few months ago and replaced Dooku's Health on Kill card. The description is pretty wordy and says every 15 seconds, Count Dooku's basic attack will be a critical strike, dealing extra damage. This cooldown is reduced by 1 second for every successful lightsaber attack. The first half of that description is pretty straightforward. Every 15 seconds, Dooku will deal a critical strike, dealing extra damage. It's the second half that could be interpreted in multiple ways, as it says the cooldown is reduced by 1 second for every successful lightsaber attack. Does that mean every time you hit someone with a critical strike, the 15-second cooldown is reduced by 1 second? Well, no. Does it mean Dooku can slowly reduce the recharge time until his next critical strike by landing successful ones? Also no. How this card actually works is as such. When Dooku spawns in, a 15-second timer will begin counting down. Once that timer reaches 0, Dooku will have a critical strike ready to go. It doesn't need to be used under any time limit, and will only be activated the next time he successfully attacks an enemy with his basic lightsaber. Once he has done that and his critical strike is used up, that 15-second timer will begin again. The second half of the card's description works like this. While the 15-second timer is counting down, every time Dooku hits an enemy with a non-critical strike, 1 second will be shaved off that 15-second timer. So if Dooku lands a critical strike and then hits an enemy hero 5 times in a row with regular lightsaber attacks, the cooldown until his next attack will be reduced by 5 full seconds. Once he reaches another critical strike, the timer will go right back to 15 again, and every time he hits someone during that 15-second timer, 1 second will be shaved off the time until his next critical strike. The main thing to remember is that after you've landed a critical strike, a 15-second timer will begin counting down no matter what, and how many seconds is shaved off of that time until your next critical hit is completely reliant on how many times you hit someone with your regular lightsaber while the timer is counting down. Moving over to a second of Dooku's star cards that is widely misunderstood, let's briefly talk about Blind Spot. This card's description says Lightning Stun has a larger area of effect. To be honest, I had no idea this card was misunderstood until I posted my star card recommendation video earlier this week, where I had at least 50 comments telling me I forgot about Blind Spot, the card that, according to those comments, increased the range of Dooku's lightning stun. The thing is, this card does not increase his lightning's range whatsoever, although I can see how you get that impression from the description. What this card actually does is increase the width of his lightning attack from left and right, making the area of lightning stun effect a little wider, but not increasing the distance from which you can hit enemies at all. I'll put some side-by-side gameplay on screen so you can see the difference, but I do not recommend using this card. It's definitely not useless, but the width of his lightning attack is not an issue whatsoever. The base width is completely fine, and Dooku just has so many stronger cards, this one isn't really even in consideration for my setup. Another similarly misunderstood card I wanted to discuss is Finn's race to do one thing. The description of this card says that Finn's Deadeye has a larger lock-on radius. For the longest time, I took this to mean that Finn's Deadeye could lock onto enemies from further away. However, that's not the case at all, and this card works similarly to Dooku's card, although unlike Blind Spot, the description of Finn's card gives no indication of how it works. This card just increases the lock-on with the Finn's Deadeye, meaning he can lock onto enemies further to the right and left, and as a result of this, his Deadeye will stay tracked onto enemies who are moving for a longer time. This card is still one of Finn's best. One of my least favorite things about Deadeye is how it can tend to jump from one enemy to the next without finishing off the first one, and this card does help with this issue pretty substantially, as it will stay locked onto enemies who are trying to escape for longer in most situations. Finn's rival, Captain Phasma, also has a star card that is often misunderstood, and the card in question is the More the Better, which states the rotation speed of Phasma Sentry Droid is increased with a max percentage increase of 50%. Well, what does rotation speed even mean? Does it mean it will shock enemies faster? Well, no. What this card actually does is decrease the lock-on time of Phasma's turret, which sits on the top of her sentry droid and shoots enemies. However, her turret can only shoot in one direction at a time, and will rotate to lock onto new targets that come within its range. This card increases the rate at which her turret will turn to lock onto new targets, which will allow it to begin firing sooner, and will also allow it to track new enemies more efficiently. It's a pretty good card, I wouldn't question you if you used it, but Phasma has a lot of great cards to choose from. Moving on, I wanted to let you all know about Bossk and his very unique weapon. Pretty much every single blaster in Battlefront II has a 1.9 headshot multiplier. This, of course, means that successful headshots will deal nearly double the damage of a regular body shot. However, Bossk has the only hero or infantry blaster in Battlefront II without a standard headshot multiplier. When scoped in, so while sniping, the blaster does have a regular 1.9 headshot damage increase. However, when not scoped in and just hip firing, his blaster has no headshot multiplier whatsoever. I have absolutely no idea why that's the case. I have a feeling it's not intentional, but it's been that way since launch, and I often see Bossk players trying to go for headshots with his Relby, which is completely pointless. If you are not sniping, just go for the body with Bossk's blaster. It is much easier and deals the same exact damage. Next up, I wanted to talk about a couple of reinforcement secrets or little known facts that are extremely useful. The first has to do with the Enforcer's Acquisition Star card. This card will mark enemies who are damaging you, giving them a subtle outline. On its own, with only that effect, this card would not be worth using at all. However, this card has a secret effect, as it also increases the blast radius of every Enforcer grenade by 80%. That includes the Wookiee Warrior's Thermal Imploder, the Death Trooper's Sonic Imploder, and the Flame Trooper's Incendiary. If you're wondering why on earth this card does that, it's because the Enforcers used to have a card called Explosives Expert that only increased the grenade radius for Enforcers. That was all it did. However, once Droidekas were released, DICE replaced Explosives Expert with Acquisition because the Droidekas didn't have an explosive. However, intentional or not, the acquisition card still has the old effect in addition to the new one, even though it doesn't say anything about it, which makes it a very useful card in any situation, and I would recommend it for every Enforcer other than the Droideka, of course, because they don't have an explosive. An 80% increase is nearly double, which is absolutely insane and will get you way more kills. A similar change just happened with the Ariel class last month. After the new First Order Jet Trooper was released, DICE replaced two of their star cards, the ones that reduced the recharge rate of their jetpack and rocket launcher. This upset a lot of people because those were their best cards by far, but DICE recently announced that the Ariels just have that reduced recharge by default now, so even with no star cards equipped, you will get that reduced recharge time on all Jet Trooper abilities. My final reinforcement tip is for the Commando Droid, and this is just a great strategy for moving faster than any other ground unit in Battlefront II. You can do this by chaining together the Commando Droid's dash and melee, and by continuously chaining these you will be faster than any hero other than Boba Fett, and you are able to do this infinitely, as by the time you've used your melee, you'll have regained a dash and vice versa. Well guys, that is going to do it for today's video. If this helped you out and you learned something new, be sure to leave a like and I'll make more like this. Also, if you are new around here, feel free to subscribe. We are coming up on 200,000 subscribers, which is just incredible. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.